When it comes to derogatory terms, abomination packs a punch. How many of you have been called that? The first time it was directed at me, it hurt. But almost before I could feel the hurt, I was filled with indignation. How dare you? It's a good retort. How dare you has a certain Victorian propriety, but it may not be strong enough to withstand the slur of abomination. That horrible word conveys a strident moral judgment, again, a very Victorian thing to convey, and is intended to be definitive and conclusive. Or, put in more modern terms, someone who's deemed to be an abomination isn't good company. You wouldn't invite her out to dinner or ask her to babysit your kids. You wouldn't offer her a job or ask her to give a TED Talk. Being branded an abomination or other such choice invectives isn't trivial. Sticks and stones jingles aside, words do have the power to convey something significant. Words, in the form of hate speech, can be used to mobilize whole crowds of people into frenzied acts of unspeakable violence towards others, especially when there's something different about the others. At first appearance, that difference may not be apparent, but the truth may be but a Google click away. These days, secrets are harder to keep, and otherness can be found in people who look and act, well, normal. Some provocative words take us right to the very place where human dignity is invoked, defended, or swept away. That can be a rough place, and it's sad that so few of us are well practiced in the vocabulary of human dignity or able to stand our moral ground. Instead, many of us would much rather swing a punch, shout obscenities, or pull a trigger. Yet, as odd as it may seem, at that very moment when slurs like that are cast in your direction, your accuser and you stand in the same moral world. When it comes to the universal experience of being human, each one of us takes our humanity and our dignity very seriously. So, perhaps it's important that we talk about human dignity. But first, I owe you an explanation. Why am I so exercised about human dignity? Who would call me an abomination? Okay, I don't look abominable. People don't scream when I enter a room. But don't be fooled. I, and a relatively few others with a similar history, have each made an audacious assertion out of the whole of our lives. That may not be seeming to be apparent, but it is real. That assertion is something that most people would not even begin to question in my case. What is my assertion? Well, simply that I am what I am, a woman. What? No shocked looks of disbelief? Well, it's true. I am a woman. But a woman with an adjective in front of her. I am a transgender woman. In many parts of the world, adding that particular word summons up cynical, if not scathing, questions as to my veracity and authenticity. Yet here I am, staking it all on that assertion. Reject my declaration of being a woman? You're effectively challenging my humanity. You may as well call me an abomination. I don't like being called that, and I am being in your face about it for a reason. For those of us who own the transgender label, it matters deeply, because through the media, through cultural taboos, through religious dogma, and through all manner of misinformation spread about liberally, transgender people are being constantly challenged to defend our sanity, our audacity, our lifestyle, and yes, our dignity. So what does it mean for me to be a transgender woman who clings tightly to her dignity? Well, to answer that, let's go back many years. When I was young, each Christmas, my parents would ask us, each of the children, what we wanted for our special present. They had some insider's arrangement with Santa Claus, and who were we to question that? I don't remember what I asked for most of those years, but Santa always seemed to come through. But there is one year, when I was 7 or 8, that is strong in my memory. That's the year that I asked for a child-sized ironing board, complete with plug-in iron that actually got hot. Well, warm. My request elicited some surprise and some consternation. My dad was a colonel in the U.S. Marines, after all. But Santa didn't have any problem, and on Christmas morning, I was beside myself with pleasure as I settled in to enjoy that very special gift. Okay, that may be the last time in my life that I actually enjoyed ironing. But like many transgender women, I learned something very important about myself at a very early age. I wanted to be like my mom. Now, my parents loved me and cared about me, but they had no idea what was going on. They'd never heard the word transgender and probably would have resisted it if they had. Instead, they found many ways to convey to me that there were certain expectations inherent in the boyhood to manhood trajectory. These were not up for discussion. Instead, I was bundled off to a military academy, where I was told in no uncertain terms by a small metal plaque affixed onto a very ugly stone monument, "Don't be a mollycoddle." The definitive guidebook to being a man will never be written, but there's no shortage of advice on that topic. Most such wisdom is incomplete or cavalier and certainly never got me to where the world wanted me to go. Being a man is difficult, even for the ones who are supposed to become one. I threw myself into it and did my best to out-macho the guys. As a young college grad and newlywed, I threw caution to the wind and spirited my new bride off to a life of adventure and very little security, working in East Africa. I like to think that I cut a dashing figure there, the young architect driving his trusty old Land Cruiser across the African savanna, teeming with wildlife, some of it deadly. I went windsurfing on a lake inhabited by hippos. I did rock climbing on perilous cliffs. And I pursued my architectural career in the midst of a civil war in Uganda and a violent coup attempt in Kenya. I outdid society's expectations of manliness. Somehow I did not meet an untimely end, even if that marriage did. Every society has its own ways to pressure young people to be a man or be a woman, to conform to gender norms. It's been that way forever. One person pushing back wasn't really an option. And there was really no sense of it anyway. It was clear to me that there was no place for someone whose inner voice kept protesting ever more insistently that this isn't really working for me. Instead, the message was abundantly clear and not at all to be misunderstood. Do not transgress gender norms. Okay, play at the margins if you must, but keep quiet about it. The outlandish notion that I was wrongly embodied wasn't something to discuss or even worth thinking about. Who would want to hear that? Everyone I knew was very invested in me as Stephen. Who was I to take that away from them? And besides, I was playing the part so well. So that's my story. When you've heard one transgender person's story, you've heard one transgender person's story. The phenomenon of non-conforming gender identity is remarkably complex, and we're only now beginning to interrogate this with an open mind. Many transgender people, however, will recall similar experiences of deep denial and deep depression. The attempted suicide rate for transgender people is exponentially higher than it is for non-transgender people. If we can, our only chance to claim that inner peace and wholeness may be to transition. That's not a journey for the faint of heart, but for me it was my best prospect to claim myself as a fully human person. It was also my only chance to stay alive. So I stayed alive, and in a very real sense, I came alive. Yes. Hopefully, I can count on you not to reject my claim of being human, but my assertion is far more audacious than that. I'm claiming to be a woman. How can that be, a woman who was never a girl? Well, fortunately, I don't need your permission to be myself. But I do need your willingness to make space in our society, in every society, for people like me, whose gender identity is and always has been female, and who's living her life in a womanly direction. That's my way of saying that the transgender transition never really ends. But if we're treated with decency, respect, and dignity, we can make our lives meaningful and happy. And while I will not walk away from my claim of being a woman, what I'm really claiming is a humanity characterized by dignity. Being an American helps. My gender transition was remarkably challenging for me, for my 2 children, my former spouse, my siblings, for all who care about me. But at least here in America, I found some resources to help and a growing level of understanding. I'm one of the lucky ones. In many countries, that isn't the case. I can say that because I've been there. My career has taken me to over 40 countries, first as an architect, then as an international development practitioner, educator, and human rights activist. Everywhere I've gone, I've found ways to support activists and ordinary people as they pursue their own lives and quests for dignity. Some of those people are transgender, and some of their lives are as close to being unbearable as I can imagine. I can't speak for them, but I can and do speak with them in a relationship of deep solidarity. While our lives are very different, when my Ugandan transgender friend Beyonce calls me mom, there is no us and them. We are both the other, and that's dangerous. Beyonce was recently brutally attacked by 5 men just for being herself. This is a rough life, and societies will continue to insist that we be the people that society tells us to be. When we push back, we face a wall of exclusion that has no opening for any conversation about dignity. Yet you need to know what's happening right now to the dignity of transgender people around the world. Our dignity is being attacked when we go to the clinic to get our sore throat looked at. And in the process, we are humiliated and ridiculed so much that it becomes intolerable. We don't get health care. Our dignity is attacked when governments refuse to issue us with identity documents in our authentic names and gender, documents that make it possible for us to get a job, sign a lease, travel, get married. We're not allowed to be productive members of society. Our dignity is attacked when we are arrested again and again on spurious charges and incarcerated in places that are wholly inappropriate for our authentic gender. Once there, we become a sexual object to be abused and violated with a cruelty and heartlessness almost beyond belief. We are simply used, and no one cares. Our dignity is attacked when the only way we can survive is to pursue sex work. And we get arrested for that too. And our dignity is attacked when we are refused access to shops, restaurants, offices, public facilities, even private homes. In Houston, we can't even use the ladies' room. Now, dignity is resilient. Dignity is strong. But there are limits. Sometimes this is all just too hard. Yet, tragically, our global conversation about dignity, about what it means to live a truly human life, has become so impoverished that even the most dramatic articulation of a claim to dignity is lost on the majority of people. Dramatic? What can be more dramatic than the decision and act of transitioning gender, despite the horrific consequences that societies impose? Authenticity is at the heart of dignity, and transgender people will take extraordinary risks to claim our authenticity. That may seem irrational and absurd to others, but for us, there is no other way. By transitioning, transgender people are doing something profound in support of our dignity. And if dignity is to have any meaning, we all need to be doing dignity. We need to be changing the way our lives are lived and our world managed. Many of you will have seen, hopefully, the little girl in the red coat, which for me is the takeaway image from Steven Spielberg's amazing movie Schindler's List. There she is, striding purposefully through the huddled masses of Jewish Holocaust victims. Yet she, in her red coat and long brown hair, claims one of just 4 color images in the entire 3-hour black and white film. I'll never forget her, because she is the strongest condemnation I know of the abhorrent actions of the perpetrators of the Holocaust. Because of her individuality, her humanity, her dignity, everyone who was victimized and targeted by the Nazis sees this in some small but important way to be either anonymous or a victim. Instead, each is a dignified person who was victimized. It's such a crucial difference. As far as I'm concerned, everyone wears red, even me, a transgender woman. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the starting point for change. Thank you.